What up, fight fans all around the world? I'm back again. Chris, the big man, on the Big Man Boxing Podcast, BNB. They called him Juicy J. Some of them called him, one of them called him a juiced up bodybuilder. Another called him a poor man's version of Frank Bruno. They've called him a lot of names. They've called him a docker. They said some people said he's playing a role. This man. Not the man receiving the punch, the man throwing the punch. AJ Anthony Joshua. They've called him everything within the book, everything outside the book. Some of them have said it's just a hype train. Some of them have called him a coward. They've called him the worst things you can call a man. And ironically, he chooses not to respond to everything they say to him. Who are these people I'm talking about who keep pointing fingers at AJ? Who keep accusing him of this and that? Who are these naysayers? Some of them are fellow fighters in the fight game. Others are ex-fighters. But majority of them are just fight fans with a type of mentality. Fight fans with social media, with YouTube channels. Casual fans included. Hardcore fans there too. Because interesting that when it comes to the fighter side, those who have pointed finger at this man, AJ Anthony Joshua, including the sucker being punched there, the dorsal, Deontay Powder, everything they've accused him of doing, they've been guilty of it too. Everything these guys have accused Joshua of doing, at some point, they've been guilty of it. Let me go through a range of the accusations they bring against Joshua. Let's take this like a court case. They said he's a PED user. They said he's Juicy J. Look at this specimen of a man, 6'6", right now in an ideal weight of between 240 to 250 pounds. Muscled, good looking guy, well mannered, cultured guy. A guy who knows where he comes from. A guy who is British, but also recognizes the fact that he's Nigerian also. That guy. They said he's a PED user. One of them, who he was supposed to face June 1st, the guy with the name Jarrell, big, fat, piggy, cheeseburger, baby Mila. Yeah, that guy. That guy, one of Joshua's accusers, said Joshua is a PED user. He says Joshua has had testosterone's exemptions. He said Joshua has some PEDs. He said there's no way Joshua can come out of the Olympics at 220 pounds and make his pro debut at 240 pounds of lean muscle. He said that's impossible. He said he knows a lot of bodybuilders. The fat pig I'm talking about. He said he knows a lot of bodybuilders and he knows about juicing, and there's no way someone can move from 220 pounds to 240 pounds. And this is a pig. This is a fat pig of a man who has failed the drug test in the past. This is a guy who has failed the drug test, pointing finger at another man, accusing him of using drugs, accusing him of using performance enhancers. Ironic, right? The innocent ones are not the ones accusing Joshua of doing things. It's the ex-convicts, the guilty ones, the ones who look at themselves in the mirror and say they are innocent. These are the guys who wear a white shirt that has been stained with so many colors. Oil stain, grease stain, cheeseburger stain, paint stain. Their shirt is maligned with so many stains. They're wearing dirty white shirts or dirty formerly white shirts. They look at the mirror and all they see is a sparkling white shirt. But then they look away from the mirror and they see on that guy who has a speck on his shirt and say, oh, you have a speck on your shirt. You're dirty. That's the illustration I can give to explain what Miller did. Here's a guy who hangs around bodybuilders. Someone who hangs around bodybuilders, the fat pig himself, and knows about PEDs. That guy pointed the finger at Joshua. And this week, what happened? He popped. He pissed hot, people. Big fat piggy Jarrell Miller pissed hot for a substance that has been banned. This is not a clenbuterol. No, this is not tainted meat. This is not a substance that mixes up with the cheeseburger he eats. No, this is not a substance that mixes up with the tea and crumpets he had when he came to the UK. This is not a substance that mixed up with the fish and chips he had when he came to the UK. No, this is a substance that you take deliberately because you want to gain an advantage. I can't pronounce what this substance is, but they say this substance gives fighters endurance, gives them cardio for days. They can go for 12 rounds while throwing 150 punches per second. Yeah. That is what Miller popped for. And if you watch a lot of Miller fights, you understand why this is fishy. Miller is a guy who has a reputation for having one of the best cardios in the heavyweight division. A guy who weighs 300 and something pounds, but throws as many punches as lightweight in the ring without getting tired. Sounds familiar, right? Sounds very familiar. And he popped for a drug that helps fighters to lose weight, to lose fat. This fat pig wants to lose the fat in his body while keeping the endurance to go 12 rounds. He was so insecure in his ability to face Joshua that he needed to use drugs. That's the same guy that has accused Joshua. Moving on to the next one. During negotiations for the fight between Joshua and Dillian Whyte, during one of his interviews, Dillian Whyte said that he wanted to make sure Joshua was signed to a clean boxing program before he took that fight. Yes, that's what Dillian Whyte said. How ironic. This is a guy who has failed a drug test, acting as if Joshua hasn't been clean for all his fights, and he wants to make sure Joshua comes into the fight clean. By the way, the substance is called GW1516, a metabolic modulator, also known as cadrein and endurobol. That's a tongue twister. Speaking of Miller. So back to Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte has accused Joshua indirectly of being a drug PD user by stating that he wants to make sure that Joshua is on a VADA clean boxing program before he takes that fight against him, thereby insinuating that Joshua has not been on a clean boxing program. But for the ignorant, thick-headed, casual fan out there, they will immediately hear what Dillian Whyte said and start to assume that Joshua is on PEDs without doing their research, without finding out that Joshua is one of the most tested boxers in boxing today. Go on his social media, look at the timeline. Look at the timeline of how many times Joshua gets tested for a fight. Joshua is on a program called Whereabout, a program where fighters have to, notify this organization of their whereabouts and their activities at all times, so that this clean boxing organization can show up at their doorstep or wherever they are in any part of the world to test them. So whether you're in Russia, the Whereabouts company can show up to Russia to test you. If you're in New York, they can show up to New York to test you. They can show up at any time of the day to your home to make sure they randomly test you. Joshua has been part of this program, but Dillian Whyte pretends as if Joshua is not, and said that he wants Joshua to be signed to a clean VADA testing program. This is a Dillian Whyte who also, lest you may forget, turns out to be a fat guy also. He's not Piggy Miller level fat, but you can see his love handles. This is a guy who has failed drug test also, accusing Joshua of PEDs indirectly. Dillian Whyte. And you have another example in Luis Ortiz, a guy who has done everything in his power to discredit Joshua. He has called Joshua a chicken. He has called Joshua a coward. He has called Joshua everything. But yet, only came out to call Joshua after Joshua had just signed to face Miller. He had every opportunity in the world to call out Joshua before then. Joshua had already mentioned his name as a potential future opponent. But this guy waits until Joshua signs a contract with Miller and then says he's willing and able to fight Joshua. This is the same guy who, after the news of Piggy Miller failing a drug test, Joshua said categorically that he wants to face Luis Ortiz. And what did Luis Ortiz's manager say? He said Luis Ortiz will not be ready for that fight. Luis Ortiz happens to have been a PED user also. But unlike the Piggy Miller, I would say he had an excuse you could bring to court. He said he had something to say. He had an excuse. He said the PEDs he was taking was part of the drugs he was taking for his high blood pressure. High blood pressure drugs that had PEDs. He brought an argument to the table. Do I believe him? Hell no. Does that argument stand? Hell no. But he had something to say as a backup. Miller didn't. But Miller was the loudest talker. Jumping from the PED accusations, other fighters like Deontay Powder, I repeat, have tried to downplay Joshua's achievements in the ring. Deontay Powder has said that Joshua faced an old, inactive Vladimir Klitschko. He said Joshua faced a Klitschko who was coming off a 2-year layoff. He said Joshua faced a 40-year-old Klitschko. Fair enough. But please, don't you turn around. Don't you turn around and face a Louis Ortiz after accusing Joshua of facing an old Klitschko. Don't you repeat that same thing you accused Joshua of doing. Ironic, right? You accuse Joshua of facing and picking old opponents. You called Povetkin old. But yet you turn around and face old Ortiz. And you still want to face old Ortiz again before you face Joshua. How pathetic. How pathetic that these guys can't even look at themselves in the mirror. They lack their self-awareness radar is so low. Don't accuse someone of something you're guilty of. He accused Joshua of facing an inactive Klitschko coming off a 2-year layoff. But this Dosser turned around and jumped at the opportunity to face Fury. Fury coming off a 3-year layoff. And unlike Klitschko, who even in his inactivity is still one of the most well-conditioned heavyweights in boxing. Klitschko might be outside of the ring, but he's not eating cheeseburgers. He's not gaining 1 million pounds. He still lives a healthy lifestyle. This Wilder, this Powder, Deontay Wilder bomb squad went ahead to face Fury coming off a 3-year layoff. Not just 3 years of inactivity, 3 years of depression up to the point of suicide, 3 years of doing blow, cocaine, 3 years of eating cheeseburgers, eating every greasy food under the sun and gaining 300 plus pounds. That's the Fury Wilder decided to face. He refused to face the Fury coming off the victory against Klitschko. That Fury stepped into the ring and called him out. He refused to face that Fury. He ducked that Fury. He claimed he had mandatories. Who was his mandatory? Who was his mandatory, please? Who was his mandatory? Go find out. He ducked Fury when Fury was fit enough, but jumped at the opportunity to face Fury when he was coming off one of the worst periods of his life. That is the Deontay Powder that accused Joshua of facing an inactive Klitschko. Deontay Powder himself has called Joshua a coward. Has called Joshua a Uncle Tom. Has called Joshua's promoter, Eddie Hearn, a slave master. But this same Deontay Wilder can't answer questions from the press about the 100 million that he docked. That Smeagol looking Shelley Winkle. If you watch Lord of the Rings, remember Smeagol, the guy Precious, who wanted that ring. Remember how it looked like? With those big eyes? That's how Shelley Winkle looks like. That's the Shelley Winkle who is the master of Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder, like, yes, master, answer the questions for me. Yes, master, I won't take the 100 million. Yes, master, I won't take the fight. Every time during press conferences when he had to answer questions about that 100 million doc, Shelley Winkle always jumped in to speak for him. A grown man. He's 6 feet 7 feet tall man, 37 or 38 years old of a man. Can't speak for himself. He needs that Smeagol looking Shelley Winkle to speak for him. And that guy accused Joshua of being an Uncle Tom. That guy accused Joshua of being the slave to Eddie Hearn. Ironic that these people will accuse people of doing something and turn around and do the same thing. That same guy who went on air to call Joshua a coward because of the 50 million, alleged 50 million that he claims he offered to Joshua. 50 million email. That's what it is. This same Dosser will turn around and dock 100 million. 100 million. And an opportunity to unify the titles. And not just unify, the opportunity to get back at Joshua if he loses the fight in a rematch. 3-fight deal. The first fight against Dominic Breazeale, his mandatory challenger. He was going to face Dominic Breazeale before. It was not as if it was an opponent that he brought out of nowhere. He was already built to face Dominic Breazeale. He was built to face Dominic Breazeale. And he was getting 20 million. And trust me, he's not making 20 million for facing Dominic Breazeale under Showtime banner. No, trust me. Because if he was, he would let the world know. He didn't hesitate to let the world know that, according to ESPN, is the most Google searched fighter. If he couldn't hold back on that, do you think he was going to hold back on letting everyone know that Showtime was paying him 20 million plus for his next fight? Do you think he will hold back on that? You saw how he laid on his back with his legs spread out when he learned that he and Fury, most especially Fury, had sold 1 million watts of tickets. Not 1 million people, not 1 million tickets sold. No, let me repeat myself. This is not a case of 1 million tickets sold. No, this is a case of $1 million worth of tickets. And this powder of a guy went on his back, lay on his back, like you know what, spread his legs on camera because he found out $1 million worth of tickets were sold. You think that guy will hesitate to let the world know that I was making 20 million plus after docking 20 million from DAZN USA? Deontay Wilder, one of the accusers of AJ. So frustrating. I respect guys who accuse Joshua of doing things that they are not guilty of. But if you are guilty of doing the same thing, why point a finger? Why point a finger at this man? Why? Then he said, Deontay Wilder, he said Joshua and his fan base shouldn't be looking at another man's pocket. That he doesn't care about what Onama is making. All he cares about is glory, about the belt. And yet, one of the stupid reasons why he refused to sign the contract, he refused to sign the contract to face Joshua was because he didn't know what Joshua was making for the fight. He said, no smart, intelligent person will go into a fight without knowing all the details of the fight. He said that's a bad business move and it's not dumb. That's what he said. But yet, he expected Joshua to agree to 50 million without a contract, without a meeting to discuss about the fight, without revealing the source of funds, without picking a venue, without picking a date, without getting details about the fight, without picking calls, without responding to emails. He expected Joshua to agree to 50 million. But then turns around and says he's not willing to take 100 million without knowing all the details of the fight. Hypocrisy, my people. Hypocrisy at the highest level is so evident in these guys. They don't look at themselves in the mirror. The people around them don't tell them what they see. No, they don't. Sad. Fury, a guy who has downplayed every opponent Joshua has faced in the ring, said Joshua faced his leftover in Klitschko, even though the Klitschko that he faced was not the same Klitschko that faced Joshua. The Klitschko that faced Joshua would have beaten Tyson Fury. Not the gun-shy guy that faced Fury. No. And then this same stupid lump of a man is facing Tom Schwarz, or what's his name? The German guy. That's who he's facing in his next fight. These guys don't have self-awareness. Trust me, they don't. All I see from these guys is envy. Envy towards this man. This is what envy does. Envy blinds your eyes and doesn't allow you to give credit to whom credit is due. Envy makes you always want to make your rival look bad. Whereas if your rival looks good, if you defeat a man like Joshua who looks good, that will make you look better. Defeating a guy you have downplayed and made out to be a bomb will make you great. Defeating a man who has all the accolades and respect of the world will make you greater than him. It's frustrating. I have nothing against these guys. I have nothing against Tyson Fury. I have nothing against Deontay Wilder. I have nothing against Jarrell, big, fat, piggy, cheeseburger Miller. No. All we ask is for fairness. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. Don't accuse Joshua of something and turn around and do the same thing. No double standards. We need to see things straight down the middle. Don't accuse Joshua of facing Vladimir Klitschko in his 16th or 17th fight, when you are just stepping up in your 40th, 39th, 40, 41 fight. Don't accuse Joshua of facing a known name early on in his career when you are stepping up late. When we all know all you've been facing is bombs. It doesn't work that way. In order to accuse someone of something and be justified about doing that, please make sure you're clean. please make sure there's no skeleton in your cupboard. Because if it comes out that you have something dirty about you, that will make you look bad, people. And trust me, the only reason why you guys are doing this is because of the ignorant casual fans out there who don't do their own research. It's because of those guys. Those guys can't question you. Those guys can't. No. Those guys won't. Well. What else can I say? Let them keep hating. Let them keep being envious of this man. But history will prove him right. Not you haters, not the detractors. History will prove him right.